Philly Landmark Tours. First up, Fairmount Park Commission, going to the museum, Ride Museum and Library.
We're usually not out. I usually don't have people come through the front. You usually have to go to the library, so this is something different for me. But since we're standing here, I wanted to show you, that's the Ryers family pet cemetery. So not many houses have pet cemeteries. They love animals. They actually started, one of the families that started the Pennsylvania SPCA. They also started the Ryers Horse Farm in Pottstown. And they also started the Anti-Vivisection Society. And when they left money to people in their wills, they would say they left a lot of money to their workers because they only had one child, and then they left the rest to anybody that worked here. But if they were ever caught harming an animal, their money was taken away, and it would be used for animal rights programs. And you'll see their animal portraits in the house as well. So most people couldn't even have a painted portrait of their child. They had painted portraits of all their animals. Ryers property goes all the way up to county line, and they gave it to the city. They willingly, after the son passed away, he gave it to the city. He said, "I want my land to become a park. I want my house to become a museum. And I want all my books to become used as a library, forever free." You get to put the names that I'm talking about. You get to put that with the face, and I think it just makes sense to start here. This is Joseph Walton Ryers, the man on top of the fireplace here. He's the one that had the house built in 1859. So we're talking right before the Civil War, and Robert's going to break that tradition, the son. So Joseph Walton Ryers has his house built. This is a summer home. Their original home is where the Thomas Jefferson University, the hospital downtown, their house was there, and it was demolished to make, I guess, room for the hospital. I wish it was still there, but that was where their house was. This was surrounded by mother's side family. First one to come over, and he came over with William Penn. Oh. He came over in the 1600s with William Penn on the Welcome. So this family's been here for a long time. When they stepped foot on this country, they already owned 1,000 acres of land in Bucks County. Oh. So when they came here, they actually set up shop along the Neshaminy Creek and kind of lived there, camped out there for a while their home was being built. So they had homes all around Pennsylvania. There's also homes in New Jersey that have the long name.
What nationality was it?
They are English and Welsh. So Burholm's Welsh, it means house in a wooded setting. Oh. So this actually wasn't a wooded setting. And the park is called Burholm Park. We call this the Robert Ryers, library museum. But when I was growing up, I grew up around here, but it's just everything was Burholm. Oh, Burholm House, Burholm Park. So he's the man that's going to have the house built. He is, when I look at his portrait, I think of, he was like the industrialist. He was the businessman. He made more money for this family that already had money. He was president of the Merchants Exchange downtown. He was president of the Tioga Railroad Company. He was, they did trade with China and England, and you'll see the things that he brought back with him because of that. So he was a very wealthy and a very smart businessman. He is going to marry Susan Wong. Now that name sounds familiar, right? That's his cousin. So he marries his cousin Susan Wong. I always call the Susan Wong's side of the family the Philly Wongs. These were her parents, Phoebe Lewis Wong and Robert Wong. They lived in the Frankfurt section of Philadelphia. Their house is no longer there. It was demolished in the 1880s. It was called Long Grove. We actually have a portrait of it upstairs that you can see. But that's who he marries. I don't have a portrait of her. I only have a silhouette of her when she was a child in the other room. They were Quaker to begin with. They had their own meeting house that's still there. There's also a Waln Street in Frankfurt section of Philadelphia. So this family was very prominent. So he marries Susan Wong. She has a child, Robert Wong Ryers, and a year later, Susan passes away. We don't know why. We don't know why she passed away, how she passed away. I know where she passed away. I know that she went to Waln Grove to have her. Yeah, it just, they lived here and then they left all their stuff.
How much is this house right now?
I would think so.
Oh,
I'm not allowed to give out numbers. People ask me all the time, how much is this worth? I'm like, I'm not allowed to say.
I say millions.
I would think so.
I can't get this house. I'm poor.
Yeah, but the property alone would be millions.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, let's face it.
If you look at these portraits up here, these portraits were done by Edmund Datch Lewis. He is related to Phoebe Lewis Waln, the grandmother, the Philly Walns I was talking about. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because he's also related to the physics. And you're going to that house next.
Yes.
So when you go to that house, tell them that you saw Edmund Darch Lewis's paintings. Because he's on their website, he's related to that. If you missed this part, I mean, this is the best story in the whole house, and middle class. But for some reason, and we don't know why, her and her brother leave their home and they come to America. Her brother came first, and he became a gardener in Philadelphia, and she came over and became a maid. So why she would leave, I don't know. It kind of seems like she had a comfortable life, but she came here and she became a maid. And she worked for Anne, the woman that loved animals, the stepmother. So she worked for Anne. She was her like personal maid, like a lady's maid. She worked here for over 20 years. Anne passes away at the age of 72 from a heart attack. And now it's just Robert. This was a country home. But when Joseph the father dies, they make this full time, this house full time. He keeps the house in Center City. I personally think he keeps it as like his bachelor pad. If he wants to get away from his stepmother, he always has his place in Center City. But this became a year-round home. They added this back parlor, and they actually added a kitchen and a bathroom, which they took away to make the Asian gallery. So I would have loved to have had a Victorian kitchen and bathroom, but they took it down in the 20s to make that. So Marianne comes here, she works here, Anne dies, she's here with Robert, and then Robert becomes ill. He has kidney problems, and he starts to have heart problems, and he knows he's going to die. He's in his 60s, and he's always kind of unhealthy through his whole life. And he did have marriage proposals in the past, but he turned them down. And like women wanted to marry him, I guess, for the money. He never married any of his cousins, like his father did. But he married the maid. He married Marianne. He knew he was going to die. He never got married, never had children. He knew that he wanted this house, like I said, to become a library and a museum and a park. And he thought, who will make sure that happens? And I guess he thought Marianne was very loyal to the family. And so he married Marianne. Now, people ask me, were they in love? I don't know. I don't have their diaries. I can't tell you, oh, they loved each other. The only time I ever heard of anyone loving anyone was Marianne. When she died, a friend wrote about her in the newspaper, and they said, and she marries again, by the way. And the friend says this: there's only 3 things that Marianne loved in this world. She loved God, she loved the church, and she loved Robert Ryers.
This is our first Philly landmark. There's more coming up.
And then upstairs was the service bedroom.
Stop off on the Philly Landmark Tour. What a restaurant. Tell you about it later on. Take care.
Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens.
Okay, well, I'd like to welcome you to the home of my great-great-great-grandfather, Dr. Singh Physic, indeed. He is the father of American surgery, and so does Pop.
And soda pop?
So does Pop.
Oh, sodas.
He makes the first sodas in America in 1807 for upset stomachs, so we could say he's the father of American soda. It's dull. We say he is Soda's Pop.
Okay.
Now this house is one of only 3 freestanding federal mansions built downtown Philadelphia. It's the only one of the 3 that still stands. It was built in 1786 by Colonel Henry Hill, who imported Madeira wine, which was the most popular drink at the time. And it wasn't taxed. So he was very wealthy. When Henry built the house in 1786, he built it around a little house that was freestanding, 2 stories tall, in that corner. It became the kitchen, the servants' quarters. He built his mansion around it, putting 3 stories on top of it for the servants. Well, in that little house, that is where Colonel John Nixon lived on July the 8th, 1776, when he makes the first public reading of the Declaration. We'll pick up that a little bit later. You're going to be looking at French wallpaper throughout the house. Physic had French wallpaper. We don't know what patterns. But all the paper you will see comes from a company in France, Zuber, all the leaders of the city in attendance for her ball, including her old acquaintance at 19, Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's older brother, the ex-king of Spain. After his brother lost the Battle of Waterloo, Joe Bonaparte fled to Philadelphia, lived around the corner for 16 years.
Oh my.
Becomes a family friend. Brought with him a grand collection of artwork. Dr. Physic purchased 4 large landscapes from Joe Bonaparte. That's the only one of the 4 we still have in the house. It's the ruins of Rome. But everything against that wall, it's all physics. The portions are purchased from Bonaparte. They're from Paris. What you do with these is you put ice in the bottom. Inside there's a tray that floats over the ice. You put ice cream or fruit in there to be cooled by that ice, but not diluted. From the town that they come from in England, it's named Fishwick.
Oh.
Fishwick. Well, the English, they don't pronounce it W like we do. They say Fishwick. Fishwick. Before you know it, it was Crow. Took a lot of jokes about it. A medical student in Edinburgh wrote a 13-verse of puns on his name about how the sick will sing for Dr. Phil. He'll fill you with pills and physic your physique. And on and on and on. Named for his grandfather, the silversmith, Philip Singh Jr. His silhouette is in that cabinet, some of his silver. And there is a copy of the inkstand his grandfather made for Independence Hall, used to sign the Declaration and the Constitution. The lifelong friend of Ben Franklin. Nobody knew Ben longer than him. Met Ben as a teenager, lived their whole lives together, dying 11 months apart. Frank 84, he's 86. In his junto, they do everything, all the families. He makes the bookplate and the seal. He's always the treasurer. Makes the patterns for the forehand class firebox, patterns for the Franklin stunt, for the sun, fireplace. 2 weeks ago, I had a class of school kids coming here. A little girl had a question nobody's ever asked in 10 years. This little girl says, okay, this is supposed to be Napoleon's army tent. Why isn't it on the ceiling?
If it's a tent. Yeah.
Who wants a tent without a top?
Yeah, of course.
It's easy to do the walls. That would be hard to do.
They could though.
You could do it, but it'd be more difficult. Now that mantle, like that is more that Valley Forge blue.
Oh, that's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
But it is unusual to have mirrors in a mantle.
Yes.
Well, when the house was restored to become a museum in the 1960s, all the old originals are cracked. So they had the workmen pulled away from the wall. Look what they found behind the old mirrors as a padding or a shim. Newspapers and handbills that advertised 1,000 bladder stones. And wait to see the instant upstairs. And John Marshall's stones are on display in Philadelphia at the Museum. If you want to go up there and count his stones.
One person got 1,000 stones?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Really own colony. It wasn't like New York, a royal colony. So Franklin, the second time he went to London, he was there for 5 years trying to get the King of England to take Pennsylvania away from that family. Give us a royal government. But Physics' father negotiated with both sides to get them to compensate the Penns. When he made that appeal to the British, took son Philip to London. You'll hear about it upstairs with Dr. John Hunter, the world's first modern surgeon, Physics' second favorite pupil. And their experiments will inspire Shelley to write Frankenstein, and Robert Louis Stevenson to write Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So,
when it was built, this would have been the floor Dr. Physic would have had exclusively for himself. Wealthy people at that point, whether they're married or not, they generally took up one floor, you know, for whatever. Maybe a guest room in there. On the third floor, up those stairs, is where the children and the servants would have stayed. And then the fourth floor is for the servants, the storage area. I've never been up there. The door you see on the side here is actually a two-story apartment that Dell lives in. So they had to commission the houses of Bear Paris. So, okay, we will step in this room. Have a seat, ladies and gentlemen. Did you say have a seat? Not yet. You're welcome to sit around the table. So, this room is actually Dr. Physic's bedroom. This is a very large room for a bedroom in a townhouse, in a townhome in Philadelphia too. Very large. The reason why you see the table in here, the way it's set up, this room is used and furnished by the Pennsylvania chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati. The society has been meeting here for about 50 years in this house, in this room. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Society of the Cincinnati, but it's an organization that was started in 1783. It was formed by George Washington and his generals, his officers. It was named for the Roman general Cincinnatus, who also left his farm to fight for the Roman Republic. Have you ever seen the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe? They claim it's loosely based on Cincinnatus' life. I didn't know that at the time I watched it, but the city of Cincinnati, Physics' daughter Susan, somehow was a member. Now Commodore Connor distinguished himself in the War of 1812. Handed down from the officers and the generals of the American Revolution. It's an inherited position, father to son. If there's no son, it would definitely go to another male relative. So they have chapters in all original 13 colonies, and they also have chapters in France. France helped participation in the revolution, and in Germany. I assume it's because of von Steuben, who literally trained our troops at Valley Forge to fight. Their headquarters are in Washington, D.C., on Embassy Road, Massachusetts Avenue. So you pass this around, you can get an idea of the elegance of this group. You could go online and Google them, look up the Society of Cincinnati, and also what did I say that was called the house there? Not the powerhouse, the Anderson House. I'm sorry, that's what it's called. You go online and take a very nice virtual tour. Pennsylvanians who participated, officers that participated in the Revolutionary War.
From the Philadelphia Landmark Tour, this is Lenny B for the LMS Extra Show.